Hi, Dr. Becca here with Del Mar Center for Behavioral Health. Today I want to talk a little bit about FBAs, or Function Behavioral Assessments, or Functional Behavior Assessments. You've probably heard them referred to as FBAs, and they are an important part of a behavior intervention plan that we'll talk about in another video. The reason that we do an FBA is that we need to determine the function. And really what that means is, why is the individual doing what they're doing? Because really we can only change behavior when we have an understanding about why the individual is doing what they're doing, and then give them a way to get that need met that is a more appropriate behavior. So an example would be, let's say a child is screaming when they want water. They don't have that functional communication of asking for water. And functional communication means using communicative gestures or language, so using communication in a way that serves a function. So if the child is screaming, and we've learned that when he screams, he wants water, so we give him water. But nobody else knows what that screaming means. And screaming is kind of aversive, right? So we want to give him a different way to get that need met. So we track the data. We get the ABCs, right? The antecedent, the behavior, and the consequence. And what that means is what happens before he screams. Then what does he do? He screams. And then what happens after that? He gets water. And so we track all of this data for, let's say, a week. Until we start noticing this pattern that when he screams, he gets water. So then we make a hypothesis, which is really a guess. And so I'm guessing, I'm thinking, an educated guess, right? Because we're making this idea based on data, not just sort of plucking it from the world. But so we think that he's screaming because he wants water, and we don't want him to scream. So we have to give him another way to get water. So maybe we start teaching him to sign water, right? Or we teach him to verbally say water. Or we teach him to hand a picture of water. Any of those are a functionally equivalent, so they result in the same consequence, right? The same thing happens. He gets water, but it's not screaming. And we can only come up with those plans after conducting an FBA, right? So it's really a process, and it's an ongoing process, because let's say I make a guess about that he's screaming because he wants water, but it isn't water. So we use the water, or say water, or hand the water picture, and he keeps screaming. So I was wrong, right? My educated guess was incorrect, which happens. We are all fallible, present company included. And so we go back to the drawing board. Let's go back to the data. What else could it be? Well, gosh, if we're giving him water, he's also getting attention. So maybe it isn't the water, but rather the attention that he wants. So let's try another intervention plan and teach him how to ask for attention. Say, I need attention. Or to come up and start initiating a play sequence or conversation. That's another way that we can use that FBA data. So we gather data, we hypothesize, we guess at what the function is of that behavior that we don't want to see more of, and then teach the individual another way to get that need met. Because our wants and needs are important. We all have them. Right? And so we want to teach the person how to get their needs met in a way that is socially acceptable. So if we hypothesize that it's getting water, but we implement that functionally equivalent or alternative behavior, right? That's just big language, but basically it means giving him another way to get that need met without engaging in the screaming. And the screaming doesn't decrease. We had the wrong function. So we need to try another option. And so maybe it's the attention, right? Because we get water and attention because somebody's providing us with the water, and you're also getting that attention. So we teach him how to ask for attention, and then we see a decrease in the screaming behavior. Well, gosh, then we did it, right? We came up with an alternative behavior that's more socially acceptable and helps him get his needs met. So I think it's important to be mindful that the FBA is a functional behavior assessment. It is a process of collecting data so that we can come up with these educated guesses or these hypotheses. And then that is what guides our intervention plan. It's also fallible. And so we get the data, we make a guess, an educated guess, and maybe we're wrong. Then we always want to be going back to that FBA, going back to that data, collecting more data. It's really a working document. It's nothing written in stone. And so we want to be going back and revisiting that FBA as much as is needed. Maybe a new behavior pops up. I use the example a lot of, that whack-a-mole game at, I don't even know if that's what it's called, but that's what we called it, where at the arcade where like when the mole head pops up and you bonk it on the head and it goes down, but another one comes up, then you bonk that one and then another one comes up. I mean, that's kind of how behavior is. We get one behavior kind of under better control, or give an individual a functionally equivalent behavior for that undesired behavior, and then another one's going to come up. And that's for all individuals, not just individuals with special needs, right? There may be times that we are eating a lot of junk food, and then I say, okay, I'm going to eat better. And so I start eating better, but then maybe I start daydreaming more or staying up late, right? There's this sort of way of coming up with maladaptive behaviors is a normal part of life. And so we are just always wanting to be thoughtful and noticing the behaviors, completing an FBA so that our behavior intervention plan, or the way that we're intervening, is based on data that comes directly from that individual, and that we want to regularly be revisiting that FBA and making changes if needed. Thanks for taking the 6 minutes to listen in and learn about FBAs, or functional behavior assessments. I'm Dr. Becca. I hope you have a great rest of your day.